Hello, I'm Robert O'Farrell, and I'm delighted to be able to be here today to interview Simon Mould about his Passiontide cantata, which has recently been released on CD on the Divine Art label, and it is also available on the same label for download. Now, Simon and I have known each other for many years, both as church musicians and singers, and I'm pleased to be able to be here today to hear Simon's insights into this new piece. Simon.
Well, that's very kind of you, Robert. Thanks for coming along.
So, Simon, when did you first conceive the idea of writing a Passiontide cantata, and what motivated you to do so?
Right, well, it was actually a commission in about 2008-9 by Lionel Marchant, who was organist of Maidstone Parish Church in Kent at the time. And every year he arranged a performance of Stainer's Crucifixion, or I think even Maunder's Olivet to Calvary, with a group of churches, and they came together to do that. And he said, well, we've had enough of doing that for a little while. We'd like something new, something different. Could I provide them with something, but not so dissimilar that it would kind of frighten the horses, sort of thing? So I said I thought I could. So I came up with this, which is a bit like Stainer's Crucifixion in that it's got it tells the story of the Passion,
Right.
and has some hymns in it, but also solos and some choruses for the choir to do. And the whole isn't too difficult for a group of parish church choirs to do. So that was really the inception of it, yeah.
And how long ago was it you actually were asked to do this?
Well, I say about 15 years now. So
Wow,
it's
that's a long time.
Yeah, so it's been kind of taken out of the drawer from time to time, and obviously it's I've been lucky enough to have it recorded and released very recently, in fact. Yeah.
That's very good. And I mean, when you wrote it, did you write it all at once, or was it done gradually over the years?
Well, essentially, I wrote it all at the same time. Well, it took 2 or 3 months, that sort of thing. But I thought to myself, have I got time, working full time as I was as well, to write a long piece like this? And the reason that I kind of said yes was because I'd written one or two of the numbers in a slightly different form already. Mm-hmm. So I thought that anything I added to it, sort of 80-90% in fact, could coalesce around the elements I'd already done. So that gave me a sort of head start, if you like.
Mm-hmm. How long is the cantata actually, and what forces is it written for?
Right. Well, it finally ended up being about 80 minutes long.
Right.
I've added little bits to it over the years, but it's for choir and accompanied by the organ, so you don't need an expensive symphony orchestra.
Right.
And some soloists, and you have a narrator telling the story. Bach would have called him the evangelist or someone like this, but I've stuck with narrator. And then you have a soloist playing Jesus, who's a bass, and the narrator is a tenor. And then we also have a soprano to sing some reflective items from time to time. And there's a small part for Pilate in the middle, and he's a bass as well. And so those are the forces you need. Nothing too expensive, really, I would say.
So could you see those parts actually being played by members of the choir, or do you think it would need to be done by people, professional soloists brought in?
Usually the soloists would be more professional or semi-professional.
Right.
But Pilate is often done by someone in the choir, so you get someone to have 15 seconds of fame or something.
Yes, indeed, yes. When you actually composed the cantata, did you have the text in mind first, or did you have the musical themes, going around in your head, and then look for the words that would actually fit the music?
That's a bit of a chicken and egg one, because it works both ways. I think by and large, I had the text first and then wrote the music to the text. Usually, I think that's the way I did it. There's one piece in it where I thought the music was good enough to be recycled, if you like. So I put some new words to it, which fit to it reasonably well. But by and large, I compiled the libretto, as you might say, because it's a bit of a drama as well, and then wrote the music to fit the words, I hope.
Indeed. One of the things that interested me is why you decided to use, at least for part of it, a 17th century metrical paraphrase, particularly for the biblical texts.
Yes, well, that was a kind of problem I had to wrestle with to start with. I mean, how was I going to tell the story? Because in the Bach Passions, it's some of them are straightforward quotations from the Bible.
Right. Yeah.
Although they're not all like that. Some of the narration is specially written. So I could have written that myself. That would have involved a bit more time and perhaps more genius than I have. Or I could have borrowed it again from somebody else, or I could have taken it from the Bible. But I thought, well, if this is going to have a little bit of originality, I need to find something else. So then I thought perhaps somewhere there is an old paraphrase of the Gospels that no one really knows much about. And so I hunted around a bit and I found this rather interesting publication called Christologia by a guy called Coles, the Reverend Elisha Coles. And I don't think it's seen the light of day since about 1690 or something. So
wow.
I've kind of exhumed it and used bits of it for the narration in the Passion. And I think it works quite well, even though perhaps I'm bound to say that.
It's quite fascinating. Where did you actually find it?
It was online, so it's a rather interesting juxtaposition of the old-fashioned and the new technology. 'Cause I wouldn't have found it otherwise, you know. I would have spent ages looking around dusty libraries or something. But there it was. I mean, you know, just put it into the search bar and it came up. And I had a look and thought, well, that will do. And so I took bits and adapted bits. And the big bonus of it, of course, it's 300 years out of copyright, so that you don't have to worry about that sort of thing. So it fits in quite well, and then we extracts of this come from time to time, and then they kind of contrast with the other texts that I've used. So we hope it works quite well.
Now, moving actually onto the music itself. What would you say were the stylistic influences, musical stylistic influences on this particular cantata?
Well, I think there's a little bit of quite a lot in different places. I've been a cathedral musician all my life, so the English church music, cathedral music tradition is obviously there. I've also had a kind of interested in English romantic music, particularly song of the 20th century, and I think some of the more lyrical passages are influenced by that, I would say. And with any luck, there's a bit of original me in it as well, and I hope people won't say, you know, this bit's like Bach, this bit's like Mendelssohn, this bit's like Bird, perhaps. A bit of Handel in it, I think there always is when I write stuff. But with any luck, I hope it's an interesting mix of music that is singable. I really my first kind of thing about it was that I wanted it to feel accessible, and that I think if there are a number of good tunes in it, albeit that we're discussing a serious theme, I think that would probably make it more listenable too, I think.
Yeah, and perhaps the idea of having a good tune, making it sort of more accessible to a parish choir to sing.
I think that's the case, yeah. I think you're quite right there, because you can have some very interesting music that's challenging for everyone concerned, but I felt for parish singers, I think tunefulness is a good virtue, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with that, because as somebody who actually conducts a parish choir,
weekly knowledge of this.
So I have weekly knowledge of how essential that actually is. I think perhaps at this point it would be really rather useful to hear an extract from the cantata to illustrate this very point.
Okay, well, let's do that. Well, that was Hail True Body, number 6 in the cantata, and in a slightly old-fashioned style, stilo antico, as we might say, but perhaps with any luck expressing the words with a certain dignity and reverence there.
Yeah, I mean, I think when I listened to it, and obviously partly because of the words, which are the Ave Verum Corpus, the bird came very much to my mind, and that sort of late 16th century.
Yes, there's a bit of a feel of that, though, but with a few 19th century and 20th century and even 21st century turns to it.
Yeah, I noticed that as well. Yes, it worked extremely well. It was quite a really good interplay of different periods. I mean, you've already referred, I think, to your experience in cathedral music. I mean, you were been involved in cathedral music since you were a boy.
Yeah, quite so.
And that you feel that plays an important part, whenever you're actually writing music.
Well, it depends what you're writing for. I mean, this was obviously a religious piece, so you perhaps deliberately or just subliminally, find it influenced by everything that you've sung and played, for 50 years or whatever it is. So I think for audiences and congregations and singers and players, if you're in that sort of tradition, you kind of default a bit to some of the sort of stylistic features that you're familiar with. So I think it's bound to come through in some ways, really. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, one of the movements, of course, is in the form of an Anglican chant.
Yes,
which anyone who listens to choral evensong on the radio or goes to a cathedral service will be very familiar with that genre.
They will be in this country, in England, where we're doing this. But across the world, Anglican chant isn't necessarily as familiar as it might be. So there will be people who spot a psalm in the cantata and will be quite surprised how it's indeed performed.
Yeah.
So, for some people it'll be like, going to their own church. For other people, what is this? This is a new way of performing the psalm to me. So with any luck, both kinds of people will be drawn to it.
That's an interesting point. Now, in some of the movements, and I'm thinking now of the gospel narrative, Then They Arose, as an example, there's a very interesting interplay between major and minor keys. And it does appear in other movements as well. Can you explain your reasoning behind that?
Yeah, well, I guess it kind of came naturally. But if there is a reason behind it, I think it's to do with probably the kind of bittersweetness of the story. The end of the Holy Week story, if you're a Christian believer, it is Easter Day, of course, and the resurrection and eternal glory. But the Holy Week story itself is a passion, and passion means suffering, and so you've got human feelings and thoughts and suffering there, and so some aspects feel as if you're in the depth of despair, and other aspects feel there's a bit of hope, and for the characters at the time, the feelings are probably very much mixed. So quite often I've tried to make the music reflect that. So a little bit of major, a little bit of minor, suggesting the drama and uncertainty and worry and hope all kind of thrown together in a situation which must have been pretty traumatic, in fact, for the people involved, all those years ago. So that's the kind of feeling behind it, really.
And sort of reflects the personalities of the people actually who are involved in that passion.
Well, yes, that's right.
Those passion events.
Yeah. So when you get the confrontation, in Pilate's court, you've got the narrator who's kind of back from the action a bit, but also part of it in a way. He has a kind of romantic sort of narrative approach to it. Pilate is a bit aggressive. Jesus is more calm. And if you put those three characters together for a few minutes, then you get quite a good dramatic interplay. That I think was the kind of notion behind it. Yeah.
That's really interesting. I think this would actually be a really good point to hear another extract, perhaps to demonstrate, how this works out in practice in the cantata.
Right. Well, we could hear a little bit of that bit where Pilate and Jesus have a conversation, as we might say.
Then they arose and led him unto Pilate. Then Pilate took him in and said,
Art thou that King to whom Judea ought to bow? Art thou a king then?
He replied,
The same, and for this purpose to the world I came, to testify the truth, and they that belong to the truth, my testimony.
So that was Jesus and Pilate, and the narrator telling us what happened when Jesus was put on trial.
That's I think illustrated the point extremely well. Now, moving on a little bit further, the harmonic structure of the piece does vary quite considerably from movement to movement, and actually even within individual movements. Perhaps can you explain to us, what was going through your mind when you were writing that?
Well, the styles of the different pieces do contrast with each other, and sometimes in a long piece of music you might think, well, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, it depends on the piece of music really, but I think here the texts are so different. I did that for a kind of interest as well as pragmatic reasons. Then it's quite a good idea to vary the music a bit to reflect that. But again, it's for variety's sake. So you have homophonic hymns, you have a bit of fugal stuff from time to time, sort of imitation of Bach, I suppose. A little bit of romantic art song style. And I think, well, I hope that I've managed to reflect the different moods of the different portions of the piece. And as far as the keys goes, it's sort of rooted in E flat at the end, or C minor as well. C minor to start with, and then gradually the piece moves through different keys as different emotions and situations surface. But at the end, the very final piece is the major key, of which C minor, of course, is the relative minor. So you kind of move from darkness to light via a whole host of kind of chiaroscuro emotions in between. So with any luck, there's some interest there, and the key isn't just the same key all the way through, Yeah.
Yes, because at one point, there's one of the movements is actually written in A flat, which is quite a remote key.
Yeah, that's towards the end. That's after Jesus has expired on the cross. There's a small pause, and then the narrator in our recording is the singer who sings "O Perfect Life of Love," and that is in A flat, which is the first time that key signature has been used as a sort of, I don't know, coming at it from the other side of the hill, if you like, and suddenly realising that there is a new horizon after all. So I think it was meant to sort of reflect that kind of idea.
And in that particular movement, the organ part actually reflects exactly what the singer is actually singing. Isn't that true?
Yeah, I mean, the way I tend to write for voices and for organs, say, is to give the organ a different part from the singer. just the way I find it's more interesting like that. But in this piece, it's a kind of extended melody, really. But I've got the right hand of the organ just absolutely following the melody with the singer.
Right, yeah.
As if to say that everyone is agreed at this stage about the significance of the situation. Everyone's on the same side, sort of thing.
Right. That's again. It's an interesting viewpoint on how your thought processes are working on that.
Such as they are.
Now, can you see some of the movements being used as standalone pieces, perhaps as anthems or even hymns during Passiontide?
Yes, well, I think so. Well, one or two of the pieces in the cantata did start as standalone pieces,
Right.
so that was their initial function. But yeah, there are half a dozen which can be used for different, small pieces on their own. Yes, that's quite feasible. Yeah.
I mean, there are, of course, several hymns interspersed through the cantata. I wonder if it would be interesting to hear one of those, an extract from one of those hymns.
Yes, well, that's quite true. Yes, let's hear one of those. They're scattered throughout the piece, like sort of pillars, if you like, holding the edifice up. So we've got one at the beginning, one at the end, and then three at different points through. And let's hear the one called "Forgive Them, O My Father," which comes after the incident with the two thieves being crucified either side of Christ.
And of course, that's when one of the thieves is who actually recognises who Jesus really is
Yes.
promised. This today, I promise you will be with me in paradise.
Yes, well, Jesus sings that in his previous aria, if you like, and then the choir comes in and sings the hymn, which refers to that incident and says, "Well, it is we who crucified him, really, but forgive us all, just as he forgave the thief."
Well, thank you. That it was. I think that was well worth hearing an extract from one of the hymns, because I can see those actually being really useful for parishes.
Yes, well, it's meant to be a kind of useful piece. This, a lot of classical music involves the congregational audience sitting all the time and listening, but Stainer's Crucifixion, quite famously, had these hymns in it.
Indeed, it did. Yes.
So that
and some of them, of course, have made their way, of course, into the standard hymn books.
Yes, they have. Well, whether these will, time will tell. Long after my time, I should think.
I think that leads me quite neatly on to my next question, and this is a question which I think parish directors of music, choir masters, choir mistresses will be asking. Do you mean this cantata to be sung as a concert, maybe on Good Friday or Palm Sunday, or do you see it being used as a liturgical tool during Passiontide?
Yeah, well, it works as both, I have to say, and it's been done as both. And I think it's entirely up to whichever church or institution feels it's worth doing. You can have the hymns sung just by the choir, or you can do it so the congregation participate, or you can mix and match a bit. But it works as a concert, but it also works as a kind of experience for a congregation rather than audience. So I think either is fine, really.
That's interesting. Now, I believe a lot of the recording was done during the dreaded COVID period.
Well, yes.
What sort of challenges did that throw up?
Well, remarkably, we got off reasonably unscathed, but all you could do was say, well, we're going to arrange this recording and we're going to have certain dates in certain venues, and we're going to hope and cross our fingers and anything else, and that the relevant individuals will not be affected. And I think I can definitely say that COVID itself did not cause any difficulties, which is quite remarkable. I was fully expecting all sorts of problems to occur, but in the event, it didn't. Although you didn't know until a couple of days before that it was going to be okay, because we were taking tests all the time. And
Well, absolutely. I mean, I remember this time last year, am I going to have all my singers for Holy Week? Because you just didn't know.
Yes, that's right. So, I mean, you only really knew on the morning of a recording if your soloists or your choir were going to be there, because they would have taken the test. So, as I say, remarkably, nobody tested positive when we were going to do it, although they did test positive between recordings. So, sometimes you have a bit of luck. So on that particular score, we kind of wiggled our way through the mine somehow and got out the other side, yeah.
No, I'm sure people will be interested to know, has this cantata actually been performed as yet in a live venue?
Oh, well, it has on several occasions, but we've had one recently in Bilston Parish Church in Leicestershire, 26th of March, facilitated by the Director of Music, Simon Ainge, and we were very grateful for everybody putting it on to coincide with the launch of the CD. So that was a fortunate and enjoyable experience, yeah.
That's excellent. And you actually conducted it?
Yeah, I was in charge, and no one's written me a nasty letter since, so I think we're all right.
That's wonderful. Well, that concludes all the questions that I wanted to ask you, and I'm really grateful to have had the opportunity to hear your insights into this amazing work, which I would encourage people to go out, buy the CD, download it online if that's your preference, because it is an amazing work and a real tour de force. So thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you very much for drawing some ideas out from me, Robert. Very kind of you to come along. Thank you.